Welcome to the Rebel Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargie. The Rebel Rebel is a show dedicated to creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. It's a love letter to those people who think audaciously and act courageously in service of making the world a better and more interesting place.
Imagine that you had $1 million or $2 million in the bank account right this second. What would you build? And your ability to withstand and stay in that furnace for a damn good amount of time determines how good you end up being at what you end up doing. So when you're down, when things are not going your way, remember who the fuck you are.
In this episode, you'll meet Chris Joyce of Gusher.co, which is a platform to launch companies without the need for capital, which is cool, but not as cool as this conversation. It is full of wisdom and passion and spice for entrepreneurs no matter where you are on your journey. Welcome to the Rebel Rebel. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing so good. It snowed today.
It snowed here today.
Oh, holy snap. So, Chris, where are you in the world?
Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia, PA, in the U.S.
Nice. Very nice. I have so many questions about Philadelphia already, but we'll get there.
Sure.
So, Chris, if you could, why don't you take a minute or five, however long you like, just bring us up to speed on what's Chris up to, what's Gusher,
Sure.
what's happening.
Well, my background, I've had 24 companies in all different verticals, all different industries. My most recent company is Gusher. Gusher is a platform to launch companies without the need for capital, without the need for investors. So what people do is they join companies in exchange for performance-based equity. Nobody gets a damn thing in the company unless the company is able to achieve its goals, able to succeed in the marketplace, and that includes us. We're a performance-based equity player also. We've got more than 350 companies across the globe. We are growing insanely. And what I usually say to founders is, imagine that you had $1 million or $2 million in the bank account right this second. What would you build? How would you build your company? And then Gusher that, because we do it all day, every day. So we fundamentally believe talent is spread evenly, opportunity is not. And that's really what we're fixing by creating the greatest startup engine ever.
Holy crap. So obviously playing small is not in your vocabulary.
No, I learned that at a young age. Don't play small. That's definitely a thing we don't do.
That's interesting. So, okay. Walk me back here, because you said some really interesting things. I mean, you've been involved in a lot of companies in a lot of verticals. Can we go even before then? What is it like? Where was Chris? Where was young Chris? Where did he go right when everybody else went left?
Well, I don't know if I went right or left, but when I was 6 years old, I had a Spider-Man comic book. And in the back of the Spider-Man comic book was a business opportunity classified ad section. And it was a classified ad. And I don't remember if you have these or remember these. There was an ad to go ahead and buy burpee seeds. So these were watermelon seeds, sunflower seeds. Right. And so I sent my $5 in to get a big pack of 50 of them, a little box of them. And I sold them door to door for $1 a piece. So I grossed $50, spent $5 and netted $45. And I was 6 years old. And that was my first deal, first business.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that worked out well.
It's good. I mean, when you do stuff door to door, it kind of shows you every type of humanity possible. And you learn that in an early age. It's like, oh, okay, that's the way the world works.
Interesting. What's your, I mean, that's a pretty formative memory, 6 years old, like going door to door. What are some of the things that you remember from that experience?
I remember a lot of dead time. So there was a tremendous amount of dead time. Most people wouldn't answer, or they weren't home, or whatever it may be. Occasionally you'd have a nice person. Occasionally you'd have a rude person. But it was really, if you just hung in there and you kept knocking on doors, you eventually got paid. So it was really just a function of hanging in there from a very young age. And I'm kind of linear. I don't think, all these different things at once. I go after a thing and do it. And I think it comes back from being 6 years old and learning that.
Interesting. Well, okay, that's a great. That'll come back, later in the episode, because I find that fascinating. So many of us get distracted with all these things that are left, right, and center and all, and that we get distracted when we don't pursue what we should be pursuing. So I'm already
squirrels.
Picking up some squirrels.
Yeah, I call it. It's like you're walking a dog. The dog sees a squirrel. Dog wants to take off every direction. I call them squirrels.
Yeah, very nice. What do you look for in companies that come onto your platform? Just a willingness to go, or like what's the magic for you?
Well, it's not an age group. It's not an ethnicity. It's not a certain type of person. The vast majority of founders have two common traits, and that's really typically they are extremely honest. I'm like honest to a fault. That whole thing that honesty is the best policy on Gusher, it works. So they don't fake it till they make it. They don't pretend to be something they're not. If they need help, they ask for it. But the second thing is kind of weird, and we don't look for it, but it's just a commonality of successful founders. We've found a 95% plus correlation with successful founders on our platform and some type of extreme sports in their background. Yeah, I'm
What?
talking like, they played Division I ball. They went to the Olympics. They were on the top of Everest and lost half their foot. They're professional surfers, and it's all different age groups and personalities. So you wouldn't think that at all. But there's typically some type of background with extreme sports for some reason. And it can be anything, running
Wow.
marathons, working out.
Holy, isn't that
Yeah.
something? Man, all right. Sorry, I just got that was squirrel for me.
Yeah.
I want to go back to early Chris. So
Yeah.
you got your first taste of success at 6. Did you grow up in Philadelphia?
No, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, Fairborn, Ohio, middle of nowhere.
Okay.
Farmlands were basically on a back doorstep type of thing. And it is a little suburb, a little development, but there were farmlands all around us in a small town.
Yeah. So how does small town Chris end up in a big city Philadelphia?
Sure, I hated Ohio. I couldn't stand Ohio. I did whatever the hell it took to get out of Ohio.
Okay.
I ended up going to NYU, and from New York went all over the place. But once I was out of Ohio, I never went back in terms of living or anything. I couldn't stand Ohio.
Really?
Hated it.
Oh, just not your thing, hey?
Not my thing.
All right. And when did that? So that happened when you went to NYU.
Sure. Well,
Is
I
that when you
graduated.
broke orbit?
I graduated high school early. Went out to San Fran for a
Mm.
while, like half a year with my brother. He was going to Berkeley at the time,
Oh,
and then
nice.
ended up at NYU. Yeah.
Okay. And so in those formative years, when you're out there, trying to figure stuff out, I guess take me through NYU. What'd you study there?
Well, I actually never went to class. I studied Austrian economics and finance. Well, let me explain. So the second
Yeah.
day I was at NYU, I ended up getting a job at Oppenheimer, and I did some unique things there, and I ended up parlaying that into becoming the youngest stockbroker at the time ever. And I was working with the number 1 and 2 producers and doing all this stuff. I just created a new way of getting contacts. I'll put it that way. And that was really successful. And I just learned from the best at a very early, very young, stage. I didn't party. I didn't go to frat parties and, hang out or anything. I basically worked the whole damn time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you attribute this drive to?
It's gonna sound maybe kind of crazy, but I didn't have a great childhood. I didn't have a bad childhood either. My stepfather was almost in a way a real royal a-hole, but he wasn't in a like he didn't beat you type of thing. But he was a
Mhm.
mental f. He was a total mental fuck. And so dealing with that at a young age, and really nobody else thought he was, but I really did. I think that kind of set me up to really be on my path and to see people for what they truly are. And so that enabled me to go ahead and do things that perhaps others didn't, or it took them a longer cycle to learn. And so for me, it was kind of like stripped down from a human standpoint of how to go ahead and get what I wanted. And what I wanted was business. I always wanted businesses and generating capital and generating ideas and putting them out there. That's what I've done from a very young age.
Yeah, no kidding. Are you an extreme sports person?
I'm an extreme sports person and not let's say the adrenaline junkie. I've been lifting weights. I've been competitive doing that stuff from a very young age. I still
Yeah.
do it to this day. I get up at 5 a.m., strap 300,
Yeah.
400 pounds on your back. It's a different world when you do
Oh,
that. Yeah. So even my kids are doing it. I have them doing it with me at that time of day. I don't make them do it. They came to me and asked to do it.
no
So yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Wow. So are you a bodybuilder or are you like a strongman kind of guy?
More of power building. It's kind of a
All
combo.
right.
Yeah, I mean, you do bodybuilding, but you do power. I'm not married to going ahead and being just hypertrophy or big.
Right.
Nothing like roids. I'll do nothing like that ever. I grew up, part of the Ohio trajectory was growing up almost in a way the same type of gym that back then in Ohio I used to lift at a very young age. Very young age.
Got it. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I guess yeah,
It's good.
yeah, yeah,
If
healthy,
you
healthy
if you lift
lifestyle.
young, you have muscle memory, even if you stop it for a long period of time. So you're able to
Right.
get that back pretty damn quickly.
Oh, that's really cool. What is the next what's the next stretch look like for you, Chris?
Next
Like
stretch is
what
really,
happens next?
yeah, we're really growing our company to not be, let's say, a company that's 350 portfolio companies. We view it really as hopefully changing the world. That's really what we're looking to do, is disrupt the entire way that startups are created. For me, there's 700 million people. We run the numbers across the globe that are trying to figure out how to start a business, but don't have a pot to piss in. They don't have a cent to their name. They don't have contacts. They don't have a rich family. They don't live in New York, Silicon Valley, or Israel. They don't have, let's say, the background to really just do a tech product, but they've got an idea in their head and trying to figure it out. Our point is that, talent is spread evenly. Opportunity is not. We are fixing that. We're fixing it by going ahead and creating the greatest startup engine. And I believe that we're going to untap as much human potential as possible by doing it. So around the globe, that's what we're here to do.
That's awesome. I'm going to be super specific. Why you? Like what is it about you that's made this
Sure.
your mission?
Sure. Well, I mean, I saw my mom growing up in Ohio that, she worked a low level secretarial job for the government to put a roof over my brother and my head. And she always had brilliant business ideas, and they were really damn smart at the time. She was ahead of her time.
Yeah.
But she could never get financed. There was no such thing as a venture capital ecosystem in Ohio. Still isn't. She was a female in the 80s. So good luck, and seeing
Yeah.
her struggle, and, she was always frustrated that she couldn't get it off the ground. She finally did make it well into her 50s. She made fuck you money in a good way, but it wasn't into her
Right on.
50s, but that had an impact. I mean, it really did have an impact.
Interesting. And what about your brother? Is he involved
My
in this?
brother is a physicist. All right, he's a physicist out of Berkeley. Yeah, who's now just basically become a trader, and he's his own person, his own island.
Oh, wild. All right. Very cool. And is your mom still with us?
Yeah, mom's still with us,
And is she still kicking ass?
still kicking ass.
Right
Absolutely,
on.
still ornery as ever.
That's great. What would be her advice, do you think? What would she tell Chris to do right now?
Uh, my mom was always, do whatever makes you happy, and just like you always hear this, all I want is my kids to be happy. And I get that, now looking back in terms of having my own kids, but
Yeah.
her only advice would be just do whatever makes you happy. You don't have to be successful at business. She still doesn't get what I do. Even though I have all these businesses, she has no clue. She doesn't understand it. She's just
Yeah.
like, are you happy? I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. She goes, that's what you should be.
Oh, that's great. Well, then, hell, why not? And I guess my question to you is, what advice do you give to these entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
like from your big bucket of wisdom, to help them on their road?
I give the opposite of advice. All right. Meaning that I don't tell them to do what's happy in that way. All right. They have
Mhm.
to recognize that there's something called the entrepreneur's education. Everybody's got to go through it. I don't care who you are or where you start or anything else. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a couple exceptions, over history, but usually everybody has to do it. So what ends up happening is you've got to go through this furnace, and this furnace is hell. And just like anything in a furnace, either it's going to turn you to ash or it's going to anneal you, make you something better in terms of a person, the way that you view the world, the way that you do things. But it's not a fun place. And your ability to withstand and stay in that furnace for a damn good amount of time determines how good you end up being at what you end up doing. How good
Wow.
of a product, how good of a company, how good of everything is your willingness to jump into that damn furnace.
Wow. Oh, okay. Awesome. I, what's your attrition rate
Yeah.
off of Gusher? Just out
Well,
of
in terms,
curiosity.
you mean like what do we consider our loss rate or the companies
Yeah.
that don't succeed?
Yeah.
Okay. So we actually have an extremely high success rate, but I want to explain that why, and then I'll answer your question. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way that most companies are formed, they'll end up putting what we say, they'll put the money first and then they'll bring in their team, everything else.
Yeah.
The problem when you build teams and companies that way is that they end up becoming transactional. Anybody will come to work with you for a paycheck, and the
Sure.
companies become transactional. When you're using performance-based equity, what you have to do from the very beginning is attract a team of what's called VIM, VIM, the vested interest market. It's the people that have the most to gain from the success or failure of your company. Okay. So if you're building a dog food company, all of your people have to be dog zealots, not just dog owners, but dog zealots. If you're building a medical device company, all of your people either have to have the problem that that's solving, or a family member, a child. They have to go ahead and really relate to that problem. And so when you build up a team of VIM and bring them on for performance-based equity, okay, that translates directly into your marketing message. That actually turns into your initial marketing message to go after the first zealots in your market vertical. All right. That then ends up funding the company and success rates and everything else. So if you build a company on VIM, you have a much higher success rate than just building it on financing from the beginning, which goes back to us. So success rates with Gusher are, in terms of building the company, we've got greater than an 80% success rate where these companies become self-sustaining and or attract larger scale capital. If the companies are going to die, they die in the very beginning. They die on the vine. And typically the founder is unable to go ahead and attract people into their team, which is really, that's the death knell. If you don't have the emotional intelligence or ability to do that, then that company shouldn't come to life.
Interesting. So what would you mentioned emotional intelligence, which is kind of big these days.
Sure.
Is that one of the
I'd say that in a way it is, but I'm not saying that it's a condition. So I'm not going to say who this is, but we have people on there's a specific founder come to mind. He's like a robot. All right. And he knows he's like a robot. He probably has the worst emotional intelligence of all. But one thing about it is he's very intelligent, and he just keeps plodding along. So even he was able to get his company going in a very big way, actually. I won't mention what company it is because that get into issues with him.
Sure.
But he is that type of person with low emotional intelligence.
Interesting, but is doing one step after another. And what would you say is the greatest? Is it somebody's vision? Like when people jump on your platform, and I don't want to make this just about the platform. It really is about you, but you're kind of it's a reflection of you, I think.
Yeah, of course.
What is the game changer that gets people? What attracts the VIMs?
Right. So that's the key. What attracts the VIM? So let me give you an example. I started long before there was Gusher. I started a low carbohydrate food company. All right. It's just an idea in my head. I'd been on low carb for a long time. And one day I woke up and I just wanted a fucking low carb muffin. All right. A blueberry muffin. So it was long before there was any recipe online or any ways to do it. So I tried myself and failed miserably. I then started contacting food chemists online. And I went through literally, I don't kid about this. I went through over 500 food chemists that told me it couldn't be done. It shouldn't be done. It wouldn't be done because it was extremely controversial at the time. I mean, really controversial. And then I ran into one guy that said yes. And you can't really see this, but I've got goosebumps on my arm when I tell this story because this is the exact way it happened. I didn't have a penny. But a month later, 2 months later, I had my low carb blueberry muffin, started a company. It turned into the largest low carb manufacturer at the time around the world. It was the largest. We were everywhere. But in terms of Vim, he got it. He understood it. So if I was trying to raise capital with venture capitalists, they didn't get it. If I was going ahead and talking to people, they didn't get it. But if they were on a low carb diet, if they were a diabetic, if their spouse was on a low carb diet, I would start a sentence and then they would finish it. I didn't even have, it was like hot knife through warm butter. That's how you know it's Vim. They get exactly what you're doing. That's how you build your company on Vim.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
I see this as an immediate opportunity for anybody who's building a company, not just on your platform, but just anywhere. Is that that's the thing.
Right. We say this, we go, you don't need a team. That's where people get really thrown off. You don't need a team. You need the right team for you. You don't, and it can't be transactional. So, obviously nobody's going to believe it as much as you do because you're the one that's passionate. This is your baby, everything else.
Yeah.
But they have to really get it. If they don't get it, don't bring them on board. Period. Especially in the beginning stages. Later stages, that's fine. A different story. But in the beginning, it's everything.
Well, and let me challenge that for a second. I mean, I believe that in my core, but I also believe that later on that it matters just as much. Don't you think?
I think this every
Do we just
time,
get lazy? Sorry.
well, hear me out. So my team itself, every last one of them has run a business. All right. Some have been bigger, some have failed, some have gone through it multiple times. So we're in the business of starting businesses. My entire team gets it. All right. Because they've done it. So there's a shorthand. So in answer to your question, yes, that would be great. However, once you get past 50 people, typically in an organization, it's hard. It's hard to really to keep that there. The first 50 are the most important because they enable you to launch into other areas. So the first 50 hires, I'd say, are absolutely must be them. They must get it.
Zealots all the way through.
Yeah.
And maybe you turn the 51 and up. Maybe they just get sucked into the vortex of them.
Yeah. Well, typically they become what we call
vimmed up.
They become disciples, and then it's like a church almost in a way that you're creating.
Oh my God, that's great. What do you think? I mean, you've seen new businesses start up a lot. Be predictive for me. Where would you put your next business dollar or your time?
Yeah, well, my time is really we're industry agnostic. So hear me out. The whole point of what we do is we take almost in a way that validation supposedly of all these VCs that they're trying to figure out what the next big thing is. We take that out of the equation. So we believe in a market-driven thesis, meaning that if a company comes into Gusher, we're not sitting there passing judgment on it. We're sitting there seeing, all right, are they able to attract a team? Because if they're able to attract a team for equity, for performance-based equity, the market has already spoken. The market has said that company should come to life. And hear me out on this. We've seen numerous companies that start out in a horrible way with a horrible idea that you say, there's no way that this is going to make money. There's no way this person can get a team. There's no way whatever. And sure enough, they do. And it evolves typically into something else. So even though the idea might be total crap in the beginning, when you bring in a high-level team, it evolves. It becomes something fundamentally different than what was originally planned.
Talk to me about ego?
Yeah.
So how does that play into this realm?
Okay. Well, I honestly think two things. One, you have to, this is going to come across as crass. All right. I don't believe that you have to have a big ego. I think you have to have a gargantuan ego, but you can't let it get in the way. The reason is because you deal with so much rejection and so much down stuff and so much, oh my God, how the hell am I going to get through this day? Oh my God, this barrier just came up. How the hell am I going to do this? Oh my God, we have no money for payroll at this stage. Or, hey, this supplier just pulled out. How in hell am I going to make this happen? And you literally pull rabbits out of your ass all day. That you have to have this gargantuan ego. And I literally teach, the founders, and this may come across again the wrong way, that they are God. I say, listen, you are a God. You fundamentally make things happen out of nothing. So when you're down, when things are not going your way, remember who the fuck you are. And I say their name. I go, you're Bill fucking Smith. You're Joanne fucking whatever the hell it is. Remember who the hell you are and go out and be a God. Because really, I think that's what it takes. But at the same time, you're dealing with a team. You're collaborative. So you have to be a little bit humble when it comes to that. And the whole point of collaboration is working with those people. So you have to have a huge ego to go ahead and be a defensive shield and to keep you going at times. But you have to be human enough to really relate and be authentic.
Holy crap. That's awesome.
I think so.
What a well, it's such a nice, it's a nice, well-rounded picture because it's not I don't know what answer I was expecting when I asked the question, but it was an answer I wasn't expecting. So sure. I appreciate that. I like the fact that you have to be fucking God to do some of this shit.
Absolutely.
And that you have to be, benevolent and work with others too, because it's a team sport, whatever this happens to be that you're in. What's your favorite thing to do that's not business?
Well, eat steak, maybe. I mean, I recently went carnivore from like keto and low carb for 26 years. I just eat steak. I'm married with 3 kids. I'm married to my hot redhead PhD psychologist. But we literally do nothing but whatever our kids are doing. So I wish there were some nice hobbies and whatever, but it's basically eat meat, lift weights, and do business. That's about it.
Right. Yeah. Parent. That's amazing. And what is your wife PhD in? What's her doctorate?
Psychology. She's a psychologist.
Oh, so you said that. Sorry. Yeah. Awesome. And does she bring that home?
Does she bring it home? The psychologist?
Yeah, is she like Chris?
Well, no, as she says, she goes, I don't get paid to be your therapist. But at the same time, I think she knows that I actually need a full-time therapist, which is why I married her. So,
that's nice. Isn't that nice? And your kids active in sports, you said, with lifting weights and stuff like that. Do they do, and I don't want to dive into this rabbit hole too deep, but they're, like, do you coach? You're active in that?
Sure. I've got one kid that's like a great wrestler, but he also does drama. So go figure that out. He just got the lead in his play. My oldest is 14, 15 years old, and he came to me about a year and a half ago and said he wanted to lift. And I said, hey, you just have to commit to it for a year. So every morning for the last almost 18 months now, he's done good and he's looking big. And my middle child just started about a month and a half ago. He came to me, he says, I'm ready to lift. I go, you've got to make a year commitment and do it. And so he's up every damn day also.
Oh, that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's nice.
That's nice to be able to share that.
Yeah.
That's wicked. Do you have plans for travel at all? Like, you are a busy guy, but do you guys get a chance to see the world?
As a family, we try to do something once or twice a year. Usually it's domestic. We don't do much international. I'm traveling all the time. So about 30 to 50% of the time I'm on the road anyway. For me, I call it vacation because anytime I get out of that house is absolute vacation. Even if it's business, I am happy and very happy to do that. So,
yeah. Right on. So you're predominantly United States, I would imagine. Yeah. What's your favorite state?
What's my favorite state? Now, see, if I don't say Pennsylvania, everybody here like treats me really rude and attacks you viciously.
Well, there is Pennsylvania.
But listen, California is a great place. At least it used to be in many different ways. I love Chicago. That's a great town. It's like New York, but nicer. I would live there, except it has a winter that's vicious, like where you are. New York is still great. I love absolutely New York. I don't have really one favorite. Out of those, it'd be primarily something like L.A., Chicago, and New York are my top 3.
Oh, that's nice. What's your favorite, I guess, place to eat? It's somewhat a random question, but like, what's your favorite steakhouse?
Well, this is the thing. I would actually say In-N-Out Burgers in LA. All right. I would take those any day of the week.
Really?
I love In-N-Out Burgers. That's phenomenal. But, steak places, I mean, you have so many of them. Here, it's cheesesteak, landed cheesesteak. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to get a great steak in Philly. We do always the Brazilian steakhouses, though, the Churrascaria and Plataforma and stuff like that. So,
yeah. All right, cool. So now that you brought it up, I have to ask. So the best Philly cheesesteak, where is it?
Now you get into a thing. People say Geno's, people say Pat's. I think Tony Luke's is pretty damn good. There's a couple of them. I'm not going to take it.
That's very, very political.
Yeah,
very political. Yeah,
that's one area I have
sir. I get it. What's your? Are you a reader?
No, I'm a reader. I'm a voracious reader, but not of books. All right. I read constantly reports. I read, summaries. I read all over the web, everything else. But I try to stay away from books only because I've got a little bit of a problem where it's like, I don't want to say it's ADHD. It's almost like compulsive OCD. When I pick up a book, I have to read the entire book. So that may be good on vacation or something like that. It's not good if it's in the middle of the night or something. I can't put a book down and start it again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What's your take on AI right now?
AI, I think, is in many ways its infancy. I've seen a tremendous amount of growth in the last 3 months. A lot of people, I think, are using it, but using it in the wrong way. So, for example, we had a series of hires that we did last month, and I swear to God, we could pick out every chat GPT generated reply in our interview process, because a lot of it is text initially, and we'd
Yeah.
even call them out on it, and they would admit it,
Yeah.
But like, we can pick out, like, typically the chat GPT generated stuff immediately. I've seen a pickup in that with email, which is also annoying. It's like, stop. People don't talk that way. Talk like a
Yeah.
normal human being. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, in terms of the industry itself, it's going to go that direction, period. It's not going to stop. There's been so many damn improvements, but it's a tool. It's
Yeah.
literally just a tool that's there to be used. So it's not creating stuff on its own. It still needs that human element to do it. So we've seen a lot of increase in AI deals on our platform. In
Mm,
terms of success rates, they parallel everything else. But also,
really?
there's going to end up becoming a bust scenario coming up. So, and we're already starting to see a little bit of that, actually.
How do you mean?
There's certain companies in the AI vertical that seem to be going out or having troubles, or
Mm,
having certain issues that either they're going to be, aggregated with somebody else or sold off or something. So it was a
right.
lot of money chasing this market very quickly, but monetizing it and being profitable is much different when you have that huge computer expense in terms of the computing issues that they have. They have gargantuan costs associated with them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and the simple fact that everything's changing so quickly too.
Of course.
Like, um,
It's
yeah,
it's a moving target.
yeah, and I mean, it's everybody's so excited about it. It's like the new internet, but it's that and then some.
Yes.
Wild.
It's a cycle.
Yeah. That's interesting. What do you? So let me talk to you about cycles, because you would see sort of financial cycles as we hit these
Sure.
markets. We're seeing crypto come back a little bit.
Yep.
What's your thoughts around that?
Listen, I'm an Austrian economist by training, so I live and die by business cycles. That's part of the ingrained in me. So when it comes to cycles, it's par for the course. So when I see something like almost any industry, it's always going through a cycle. It's either coming
Yeah.
in it or going, one or the other. Right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where are we at in it?
It's just waking up each day. Oh, there's something on. It's a business cycle. That's the way it works. When you increase the monetary supply by a factor of 5 in the United States, yeah, you're going to get rampant inflation. You're going to get all this stuff that happened. It's called the business cycle, and that's called oversupply of money. That's what happens.
Yeah. How do you find the idea of the marketing and press, manipulating these things? Is that a concern, or is that an opportunity for you?
I mean, for us, we're not. We stay out of it from a standpoint of political. So, meaning that I see all that stuff, but at the same point in time, I always feel like good will prevail, whatever it is, whatever good
Yeah, I
is.
like that.
And when it comes to business, we always find a way. It seems to be that's what we as entrepreneurs do. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether it's good times or bad times, or who's in charge or who's running the country or whatever else. The fact of the matter is, fundamentally, you're an individual. You control yourself. You're
Yeah.
not fundamentally dependent upon the markets other than the general markets. So figure a way to make money and figure a way to penetrate it. That's all it is.
Yeah. Nice. Chris is out there having a walk. It's let's say it's 7:00 in the morning. I don't know. It's a crisp winter morning in Philadelphia.
It was today.
and you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I really wish the world knew this. What is the thing that you wish the world knew, Chris?
I wish they knew that little voice inside their head that says they can do something, whatever it is, that's the voice many times, most times, they should be listening to. So they have all these other voices that come up telling them it can't be done. It shouldn't be done for this reason, that reason, this fear, that fear. They have external voices telling them it can't be done for whatever reasons. But the only way progress is made is by the few people that listen to that little voice. And that little voice, people don't realize this, but that's your soul literally fighting to get out. And on your deathbed, and I saw this recently about a year and a half, 2 years ago, if you don't let that little voice out, you're going to end up regretting it because it is everything. So I don't take that little voice inside my head lightly. When it's telling me to do something, even though, hey, the odds are stacked against me or whatever it may be, I follow that little voice. I've trained myself to listen to it, to stoke that ember and really grow it into a fire. That's what I do.
How do you tell that voice from the other voices?
Sure. There's a simple way of doing it. Well, there's a couple ways, but there's one simple way is that you stand in front of a mirror, you think about that, and if it makes you smile, that's one way to knowing definitively that that's the route to take. The second route to take is as you're going throughout your day. If you wake up and it's like the first thing that you think about. If you go to the crapper and you're taking a crap and you're sitting there and you're thinking about it. If you're thinking about it in the shower, as you eat, you're thinking about it. As it's the last thought in your head as you're going to sleep, those are the thoughts that have to come out. They have to come out. Now, you may not have it perfect. That thought may not be perfect. The problem, it may be just a problem. But either way, you've got to start or figure it out and get it out there, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
That's why we're here, I think,
That's really cool. That's really cool. My takeaway there is to stand in front of a mirror and think about the thing. And if it makes me smile, let
me tell you how I learned that. Okay. So yeah. I had a founder, and his founder was, starting a software company. He was laid off, and he was a mid-level marketing exec, and he started a software company, and we'd be talking about it. But then he started talking about this other idea. All right. And he smiled, and I literally saw it. And I'm like, and then we talked again, and he was talking about these two ideas, and then he talked about it the other day, and he smiled. And I said, hey, Mike, you need to go after this other company. He goes, really? Why? I go, because it makes you smile every time you talk about it. And he thought about it. He's like, you're right. A year later, he got product of the year. It was in the trucking industry. Swear to God.
You're kidding me.
Swear to God.
Oh my God. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's a gift. Yeah. To be aware of that. Thank you. Wow. What's a guilty pleasure for Chris?
Oh God.
What's a thing that you do just for you?
I haven't done just for me. Okay. Cigars, no doubt cigars. But I can't do them. I'll do like one and then I'll be off it for 6 months. I love cigars. I love a certain type of cigar. I'm a cigar snob. I do love Cubans. There are certain founders that come from overseas. They bring me whatever the hell I want. And I just look at them because I don't want to do them, but I have to do them. So cigars.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite ritual? Do you have is it like, what does that look like for you?
Well, believe it or not, you mean with cigars?
Yeah.
So usually it involves driving because cigar smoke doesn't come out of the house very well. Yeah, but I literally just go driving, and believe it or not, I found, and I've measured this. This is the crazy thing. If I do cigars, my effectiveness at business goes through the roof. It's even way, I don't know why, but I can't do cigars every day. There's no way.
Yeah.
Driving and having a cigar.
Driving and having a cigar.
Yep.
Outstanding. I love it. You've got the ears of people. We're in 65 countries around the world. And a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs. Some of them are about to be entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Some of them are thinking about being entrepreneurs. What would be the thing that the one piece of advice that, Chris has that you'd like to share with those people that are just maybe about to embark on this journey?
Sure. I think there's one thing that I say when anybody asks this question, because it's asked quite a lot, in terms of what advice would you give? It's going to seem so simple. It's nothing new. But it is literally everything. It is everything. Okay. So I'm going to phrase it a certain way. So entrepreneurship is what we call the roller coaster of awesomeness. All right. Roller coaster of awesomeness. There's only one person that can stop that ride. Who is that person?
That would be me.
Damn right. Don't forget it. So all you do is never stop. If you never give up, if you never give up, and iterate along the way, you'll eventually get to what you need and where you're going. So just don't stop. The only person that can stop the roller coaster of awesomeness is you.
Love it. That is outstanding. And that is the punctuation point on this episode. Chris Joyce, this has been absolutely fucking awesome. Thank you very much for being on the show. and being so generous with your advice and your story.
My fucking pleasure.
I've been your host, Michael Dargie, and this has been the RebelRebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, why don't you head on over to the RebelRebelPodcast.com and fill out our guest request form. We'll get back to you within 24 hours, and maybe we can share your story with the world. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And thanks so much for listening. Until next time.